Okay, welcome back to Bouncearound Charleston. We have been celebrating and remembering the Emanuel 9 because June 17th, 2015, around 9:05 p.m., a very tragic incident happened at Mother Emanuel AME Church at 110 Calhoun Street. I have some wonderful co-authors here together that have written a powerful book called We Are Charleston. Frazier, Bernard Powers Jr., and Marjory Wentworth. And I'm gonna let them talk to me and tell me what they were doing that night and what has happened in their lives since that to cause them to put together such a powerful book. Welcome to Bouncearound Charleston.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
We are Charleston. And we're now in the process right now of still celebrating and remembering that event. Who wants to start and tell me where you were and how it impacted your night?
Well, I'll start. It was about 10 o'clock that night. One of my daughters called me and said, "Daddy, there was a shooting at your church." Well, see, I grew up in Emanuel.
Okay.
I'm not a member today, but I spent the first 14 years of my life in the church, and she called me. And I said, "What do you mean?" I'm sure like any of us, when we heard about, so what do you mean a shooting at the church? And so we turned on the TV and we saw what had happened, and there was a lot of attention, a lot of police, emergency vehicles there. So we got in the car and went down to the church and didn't stay long, came back home and spent most of the night watching these events unfold. And so it really threw, I think, me and everyone else in this community into a tailspin.
Okay, Marjorie?
I had a migraine that night. I got home from work and went to bed early. And I'm one of the only people who in Charleston who didn't stay up all night. But I woke up the next morning and there were all these texts and messages in my phone, and I opened up the paper and just, that's how I found out. And then I had to go, I teach at a college around the corner, and I had to go down there. And I remember, I've told a couple of people this, when I found out what happened, I fell to the ground. Like I felt like a physical reaction. And I, like you feel when you lose someone close to you. And then we didn't know, do we go to work? Do we have classes today? I mean, Calhoun Street, of course, was all cordoned off.
Yes.
And so that's what happened. But almost everyone I know was up all night trying to find out who was there and what they could do.
Okay, Dr. Powers?
And I was actually out of the country when it happened. I was in Tobago. It was in the evening, and someone called me, and I had a cell phone, so the phone call dropped. But all I received was there was a shooting at Emanuel, and the phone dropped, and I was just confused by the partial message, and I assumed that someone had gotten shot on the streets of Charleston in the vicinity of the church, outside of the church somehow. And I immediately went to the television, turned the television on to CNN, and we didn't see anything for it was about 2 hours. And then the reports began to come across the wire, and we began to see. And we realized that something had happened inside of the church, and we began to think about the people that we knew in the congregation, and we began to wonder who might have been injured or killed, and it just threw us into a depression, really. And as we found out more and more, our feelings were more and more unsettled.
Okay, the book is titled We Are Charleston, but I noticed the caption at the top, Tragedy to Triumph at Mother Emanuel. Explain that.
Well, that has to do as much with the history of what's happened to that church and how over and over again it's had to resurrect itself. And I think that was the initial reason for the subtitle, and we get into that in the book. I mean, there's a lot of history, and going back to its very inception. He's the historian. He can speak
Okay.
more directly.
Yes,
but that
yes,
was,
yes.
I would say
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah, that's
impetus.
right, that's right.
And then the hope that there is triumph, and
Yeah,
there already is
yeah.
to a certain extent in terms of
Yeah.
churches, running.
Everyone coming together.
Everyone coming together,
Yes,
and a
yes,
new
yes,
preacher,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
church. I mean, the Sunday after they had services.
Okay, well, tell me, how did you all come up with putting this book together?
Well, Marjory called me a few weeks after the event. A close friend of hers had suggested that she turn her attention away from one book project and maybe do this. And Marjory and I had worked together on a poetry contest a few years ago, and she knew that I had a connection with the community there in the church, and she called me and asked me if I would help her write this book. And I knew that Dr. Powers, having interviewed him when I was a reporter at the paper on local history, and I knew he had been doing quite extensive research in the AME denomination, I knew that if we were going to do this, we needed him on this team as well. And so shortly after that, we got to work, and it took us 6 months to write it. By mid-December, we had a first draft and another couple months to edit it, and it was finally completed, I guess, by mid-February.
So when a person picks up this book and begins to read it, what will they find?
First, they're going to find themselves in the present. And the beginning of the book really deals with the bond hearing and what happened there. And then we kind of go into, we begin to talk about the issue of forgiveness, because that is the issue that was so impactful by the members of the
It
family.
rang around the world.
Absolutely. And then we begin to get into some historical developments, the background to the history of the AME Church and its role in the country and in South Carolina. And in the course of the book, we talk about the variety of challenges that Mother Emanuel has faced historically, and we come all the way up to this present challenge and what it has meant for the congregation as we were able to see it at the point at which we finished the manuscript.
Okay, the title, We Are Charleston.
Yes.
We are the people represent Charleston.
Yes.
The actions and their attitudes.
Yes, and we also use that title because the three of us were here.
Come on.
We're on the ground. We have connections to the congregation, and we thought that we could tell a special story in the way in which few people could. This is not a group of people who assembled in the city for a week or 2 weeks or a month to write a story.
You live here.
We live here. We live here. And that place and the people there are so special to us.
So where can a person get this book?
Well, it's in Barnes & Nobles. It's in most of the major bookstores. It's on our website, wearecharleston.net. Amazon, Books A Million.
It's even in Costco.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So after reading this book, as I sit in my favorite chair, as I sit on the park bench, once I have read this book, what do you want me to walk away with?
Well, a deeper understanding of those 9 individuals who lost their lives and the 5 who survived. We wanted to give voice to them, explain who they are. It's important to know that they were in service not only to the church but also to the community. Each of them in their own way served people, and they were obviously very important people in their respective families. And of course, not to forget the 5 people too. And we talk about how this tragedy has changed Charleston and some of the issues that we need to address in the future. You know, the flag is down, but that's not the end of the story, obviously.
Okay.
Yes. So.
And we talk about the people who are addressing that, like Senator Kimpson.
Correct.
In particular, and organizations and people who are working hard in the community to make some of these changes.
Even with the gun control issue.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So.
And I think that's something that everyone is looking at right now. You know, who should be able to purchase a firearm, and making sure that the background checks are done properly.
because they weren't in this case.
Yes.
Correct.
Right, we talk
That's
about
right.
the Charleston
That's right.
loophole, and other issues that have to do with racism, really, in terms of school funding and the federal Medicaid money that still is not being accepted. All those things we try to address as
Well,
well.
I have seen such a change in the way people even approach you. Because walking out of the services, there were people on the street, Caucasians, walking up to you saying, I hope you don't think we're all like that. And just embracing you and shedding tears, that meant so much to me. Because it meant that this situation changed even the hearts of individuals.
But we would hope that that's the hearts begin to change. However, we still know that there are some people, even after the flag came down,
yes.
some of those voices are still out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you all for being on Bouncearound Charleston. Dr. Powers, Ms. Wentworth, Brother Frazier, thank you for being here today, sharing with us. We are Charleston. Tragedy to triumph at Mother Emanuel. Thank you for being on Bouncearound Charleston.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you heard where you can get the book, even at Costco. So go out and purchase We Are Charleston. We'll be right back after this break.